Will they take?
Well, today is a show for me of favorites. Okay, first of all, one of my favorite co-hosts, Dr. Kelly Victory, who has been with us throughout the years. She rejoins me. You can follow her on X, Dr. Kelly Victory. And of course, she is on the board at TWC with me. And we're going to address a lot of things, including this scare about organ harvesting from live patients. We're going to get into healthy fats. And we're going to have Dr. Cate Shanahan in here, who has been ringing the bell on seed oils since the beginning, as long as I've known her, probably 8-10 years. And she, as she always says, stakes her reputation on it. She's been right so far. We'll get into the weeds on that. And then another favorite from Fatty, Dr. Steph Venn-Watson. She, of course, is the veterinarian who discovered C15, pentadecanoic acid. And she's going to give us an update on the dolphins and tell Dr. Victory how she arrived at this extraordinary molecule and its effect on longevity. Back after this. Our laws as it pertains to substances are draconian and bizarre. The psychopaths start this way. He was an alcoholic because of social media and pornography, PTSD, love addiction, fentanyl and heroin. Ridiculous. I'm a doctor, for sake. Where the hell do you think I learned that? I'm just saying, you go to treatment before you kill people. I am a clinician. I observe things about these chemicals. Let's just deal with what's real. We used to get these calls on Loveline all the time. Educate adolescents and to prevent and to treat. If you have trouble you can't stop and you want to help stop it, I can help. I got a lot to say. I got a lot more to say. I've spent most of my career dealing with illnesses that shorten life, and now we have ways to extend it and extend wellness. I've been working with the team over at V-Shred to develop a product that has everything I want in a longevity supplement. NR Boost has nicotinamide riboside. You know, metal can rust. Well, your body behaves in a similar way. It's mediated through something called NAD. NAD falls as we age, so we're less able to fight off that oxidative process. We oxidize much like that metal. And NAD fights it, but nicotinamide riboside elevates NAD so we can push back on those oxidative stressors, improving health, improving longevity. The other product is Senosync, has fisetin, one of the key molecules to fight off zombie cells, and we've added resveratrol to that, which is a well-known anti-aging antioxidant again. I don't like supplements that have a ton of ingredients. To me, it suggests that none of it's working. When I prescribe a medication, I prescribe that medicine because I expect that to work. That is exactly what I've done with these products. And I want you to go to drdrew.com/vshredmd for 10% off. Again, that is drdrew.com/vshredmd. All right, you know her. She has been working with me at the Wellness Company. You've seen her commercials on Fox lately. The ER doctor, Kelly Victory, who first, Kelly, I want to thank you again for ringing the bell on social distancing, 6 feet, all these words that were being uttered by people over and over again. And you kept saying, I'll let you say it yourself. Well, what were you saying for those few years?
Yes, I said from the very beginning that the concept of social distancing was totally made up. Fundamentally, it was bullshit. And the 6-foot rule was completely pulled out of thin air. It's preposterous to think that it would do anything. And although I'm laughing about it now, we joke about it, Drew, the reality is these things weren't just an inconvenience. Like masking and the plexiglass shields and all of this insanity, they weren't just a nuisance. They destroyed the lives and livelihoods of millions and millions of people. Yeah. Think about the number of family-run businesses, for example, that couldn't afford to cut their capacity by 50%. A small, family-run store that couldn't afford to put up plexiglass shields and all of the other requirements. And in the state of California, as an example, of all of the many, many thousands and thousands of small businesses that closed during COVID, more than 90% of them never reopened. So the idea that they, foisted this fake science, follow the science, so social distancing, masking, all this idiocy, of 6-foot distancing and all the rest, it wasn't just, a joke or an inconvenience, as I said. It was really, really devastating. It left a smoldering crater where our economy used to be. And I did call it from the beginning. I've now been vindicated and been proven right. Everybody from Anthony Fauci to Deborah Birx, the scarf lady, and Rochelle Walensky on down has now acknowledged. In fact, Deborah Birx had the guts to acknowledge in her book the very fact I just said, that social distancing was made up, that they absolutely pulled 6 feet out of thin air. They said, we got to come up with something that people will actually believe. And she acknowledges that in her book. And I take it as an absolute, people should be furious about this. Whether anybody actually is held to account remains to be seen. But the American people should be very, very angry.
Yeah, let's just move on is an insane notion, particularly since the children have suffered from their being knocked out of school, the mask wearing, and God knows what developmental effects that have had. And worse than anywhere was California. And you mentioned these businesses that were shut down. Andrew Gruel had his business. He moved all his clients outside. They were still shut down. The Tin Horn Flats, they attempted to do the same thing. So the LA County, thank God Orange County wasn't quite as egregious as LA County, put a fence around Tin Horn Flats. How dare you stand up, to sort of not listen to our authority. The way we all know what happened. It was terrible. But Susan, let's move on. Let's talk for a minute before we bring Dr. Shanahan in here, talk about this organ harvesting thing. I don't want people to panic too much about this. Let's just be clear. You have to be brain dead, but your body has to be alive for an organ to be useful. Okay, right? And we're talking about not live organ donation, like somebody gives a kidney to their sister or something. We're talking about harvesting multiple organs, typically in a so-called dead person, which requires brain death. And you have concerns about how we maintain or how we establish brain death.
Absolutely. So to be clear, I have been a very, very strong proponent of organ donation. I believe it's really the last, most selfless thing someone can do in that their last time on this earth. And for families who are grieving the imminent or the just recent loss of a loved one, for many of them, it's the thing that gives them some peace to know that organs from their loved one have gone on to save the life or improve the life of a number of other people. Many deaths result in organs going to 5 or 10 different patients. That said, some things have come to light. There's been rumors of this for some time, and I had some concerns, certainly when I was working at big trauma centers, that decisions were made that the decision was made that someone met the criteria for brain death when it wasn't necessarily so. There are 2 generally accepted ways that we determine that someone is dead. The first is cardiopulmonary, and that's pretty obvious because if the heart is no longer beating and respirations are no longer occurring spontaneously, then that person can be declared to be dead. Permanently, if their heart has stopped permanently, they are now dead. That's a cardiopulmonary death. The other way is death by neurologic criteria. And those criteria are quite clear, but it requires a very extensive neurological examination, including the necessity to prove that the entire brain is permanently and irrevocably lacking function, and that includes the brain stem, Drew. So it requires that they do what's called an apnea test to make sure that the individual will not spontaneously breathe. It can't be just a part of a coma is not brain death. But in what appears to have happened, and this is on the basis, what Bobby Kennedy Jr. just sort of exposed the other day publicly, was that HHS did an extensive review of one particular organ procurement company. They looked at somewhere, I think, in the range of 350 cases in which organ donation or organ procurement had been authorized, and found that in a third of the cases that the patient didn't actually meet the requirements, the criteria for brain death. Some of them were showing, for example, indications that they felt pain. And you could tell that because if you do something painful to the patient, they may grimace, they may show no facial expression, they may simply have an increase in their heart rate or blood pressure. Those are clear signs that that individual is not brain dead. We do things like test the corneal reflex, for example, where we touch the eyeball with a cotton swab. In somebody who is not brain dead, you might get a blink or some eye movement.
Right.
In somebody who's brain dead, you won't. But it takes a long time, and particularly, Drew, I found troubling in cases, in this HHS study, cases where a drug overdose was part of what occurred that brought the person to be declared brain dead. You need to make sure that you have waited. If that person has substances on board, opiates or whatever else, you need to give time for that all that drug to be metabolized before you can determine that person's brain dead. So it's generally, we say 5 half-lives. So if a drug of Ativan or Valium or benzodiazepine has a half-life of 12 hours, you need to wait 12 hours, times 5 before you could even think about doing the testing.
So I'm a little surprised that to me, we were talking to Cate Shanahan before the mics heated up here. I'm going to get her in here in just a minute, but I'm a little surprised this happened. This is not about the criteria for brain death so much as error. This is some sort of serious error going on. In my experience, I've been in a lot of brain dead situations. You have no corneal reflexes, negative doll's eyes, no spontaneous respirations, completely flatline EEG, and as you say, because oftentimes before these patients get like that, they've often had a hypoxic injury or an overdose, and they get put on phenobarbital because they're seizing. You have to wait for all that to go away, and that can take 2 weeks. And so you're sitting there for 2 weeks, nothing changes, and then you do your thing, because then it's not going to get better. But if they're rushing it at the first after 3 days, it's malfeasance meets just horrible practice, terrible practice.
Exactly. And I think what happens is 2 things. I think there's a component, I hate to say, that is motivated by money. There's big money in organ procurement.
Kelly, I got to tell you, I would have argued with you about that pre-COVID, but now proceed.
No, there's big money in it. But there also is, I think, if you look at from the perspective of even a caring, thoughtful physician who has a patient who's in desperate need of a heart. A patient who's they've got somebody who needs the heart, somebody who needs a kidney, somebody who's desperately waiting for the lung transplant, whatever it is. And they look at this person who they believe is in an unrecoverable neurologic condition. And you could see how all of a sudden people start cutting corners and making decisions that maybe, and as I said, I still am I had a sign in my office for years that said, please don't take your organs to heaven. Heaven knows we need them here. And I believe that because there are people whose lives, my gosh, we're doing face transplants now. There have been, half a dozen successful full face transplants to people who had been horribly disfigured by burns or by other trauma. We are doing remarkable things. But we've got to honor the sanctity of life. We should never facilitate or hasten, calling somebody brain dead so that we can help another patient. That's just, it's immoral, it's unethical, and it breaches the fundamental concept of the Hippocratic
I like
Oath.
the way you framed it. The way you framed that is a reflection of the reality of those circumstances that people are put in. But let's get Cate in here. Cate, you can follow her on X, Dr. Cate, Cate Shanahan, Shanahan. Her book from 2024, there's Cate, is Dark Calories, How Vegetable Oils Destroy Our Health and How We Can Get It Back. Her original book, when she was still a Lakers doctor, was Deep Nutrition. Cate is a family practitioner. But Kelly, I want to give you a chance to talk to Cate. And Cate, there's her current book. And Cate, I want you to back in for Dr. Victory how you got into this story. And let me explain, Kelly, why I first attached myself to Cate. She came in on me and Adam's show, I think it was, and we were talking, and she goes, well, I was a biochemist. I go, ooh, I'm interested, because I was very involved in biochemistry. And we started talking about nutrition, and she said the following thing. And I was like, this is somebody who knows what she's talking about. She said, nutrition is so complicated. The biochemistry is so vastly complex. I can't say anything about anything except this. I can say this about these fats and these oils. Am I getting that right, Cate?
Yes, that's exactly right. I mean, the fact is the body is an amazing machine. And in order to be able to understand what we should eat, the approach that we have currently taken is absolutely nonsensical, which is based on doing randomized controlled clinical trials, one component at a time. And the point I was making with that is not that it's hopeless or we'll never figure it out. In fact, it was very hopeful. It was that we should just look to what our ancestors did. And that's what my book, Deep Nutrition, that was the book, that only book I had at the time, was saying, is that there's a wealth of knowledge in ancestral nutrition and ancestral principles. And now what is Maha all about? Ancestral nutrition principles. Mm-hmm. And so it's very hopeful time for me.
And Cate, and Kelly, I knew you'd like this, so go ahead and ask questions.
I do,
Cate,
by the way, I have to say, I was thinking last night, I wonder if I should be paranoid that Drew and Susan asked me to be on a show where we're talking about fat. Like, okay, like maybe I should be like, maybe I should be paranoid about that. No, I am very, very, as you undoubtedly know, Cate, most physicians, I have very, very rudimentary, if any, training in nutrition. They simply do not cover it well in medical school, and you don't learn it during your residency really at all. Your average physician is not particularly knowledgeable. I would like to say present company accepted, because I'm fascinated with it and I spend a lot of time. I feel that I am very well versed in it. All that said, I was late to the table on this issue about seed oils. I sort of bought the narrative of at the time, which is that beef and cholesterol are bad, and therefore you should avoid those things, and you should eat corn oil. And then it was not corn oil, it was canola oil, and we really got into that seed oil culture. So I bought hook, line, and sinker all of that, and so here I am spending an insane amount of time, energy, and money focusing on eating what I believe to be an incredibly healthy diet. And it turns out that singular component, those seed oils, were really bad. So I'd love to hear from your perspective how it is that you got there so quickly, way before everybody else did, because you clearly were right.
Yeah. So Kelly, give yourself a break, because the entire medical education system is basically designed around nutrition, especially, to make us believe saturated fat and cholesterol are the cause of heart disease, and that seed oils are the answer. They're some sort of like a liquid human form of Drano that's going to keep those arteries clean, because they're liquid, and saturated fat is solid, and that's dangerous. And it is literally the stupidity of that kind of thinking, that because butter is solid on the counter, that it's somehow going to solidify in our arteries, that was driving this whole thing. And the reason that I recognized it, back when I did, which is 2002, is because I've been fascinated with chemistry. And as soon as I realized that these heart-healthy vegetable oils were supposedly healthy because of something called polyunsaturated fatty acids, which are the liquid kind, I realized that that idea made almost no sense. I mean, and immediately it was like, wait a second. The whole argument was supposed to be that these saturated fats are solid and polyunsaturated fats are liquid, and therefore solid things solidify in our arteries. I mean, that made no sense on its face. Like, the minute I started questioning it, really, because why would we question it, right? At that time, nobody literally was talking about seed oils. In fact, seed oils wasn't even a term. The term that the few people who had any concerns at all used wasn't seed oils, it was vegetable oil. Right. And because that's what's on the label, right? You can buy vegetable oil. You can't go to the grocery store and buy seed oil, but you buy vegetable oil. And so I recognized that because of their polyunsaturated fatty acid content and the way they're processed, that if they were in a position to interact with oxygen in our body, that they could polymerize in our cell membrane. So that was like, immediately I knew that was bad. polymerization is how plastic forms. It's how you get plastic coatings on your floors, like polyurethane is a polymerization product. And it's a very fast reaction, and it completely is terrible, something that should not be happening in our bodies. And the fact that the chemistry of these oils was nearly identical in terms of the double bond structure to polyurethane and plastics, as soon as I looked at it, I knew this had to be not just important, not just something, hey, gosh, that's maybe going to be worth thinking about or talking about. It was going to be the answer. Because you don't know me, Kelly, but like when I've been on shows before, I was talking about how by the time I graduated, I was so disillusioned with medicine because I went to medical school to understand the root cause of conditions that, all my patients had. And we didn't learn that. We learned how to name them, how to medicate them, what procedures we need, what diagnostic tools. We learn a lot of great stuff, but we don't learn the root biochemical, biological cause. Right. And so those two double bonds on polyunsaturated fatty acids, that was the door that opened for me. And it became a huge rabbit hole that I am still digging my way through because there's so much there. The fact that we learn any nutrition at all is actually a problem because what we do learn, most of it is exactly backwards.
Correct.
And dangerous. And it makes us, instead of being a preventative medicine physicians, it makes us agents of disease, of chronic disease.
Right. Well, you only have to look, Cate, at the food pyramid. It's an example. We all learn the food pyramid, and even people who, are not physicians, and most people are familiar with the food pyramid. It certainly is part of the public health initiative for, the CDC and HHS, and the government puts out the food pyramid. They have updated it a couple times, but you only need to understand the influence of, big ag in the development of that, of the food pyramid to understand it was all driven by money. Where different foods ended up on the pyramid, whether it was dairy or beef or wheat or whatever it was driven entirely by money. So how did we get here? What actually, in your mind or in your research, fueled this disinformation, as it were, that was fed to us by the FDA and the CDC and the USDA over all these years about seed oils? Was it fundamentally, did it come down to, the corn oil lobby or the canola oil organization?
It was way more insidious, and that is how it has continued to fly under the radar for all of these decades. And it was truly kind of evil and dark. That's why I call the book Dark Calories. But the root of it is that in this country, we do not grow what we need to eat. It's the other way around. We eat what we need to grow. And what that refers to is a strange time in history in the early 20th century where Henry Ford was leading something called the farm commergic movement. Commergic meaning referring to chemicals. And Henry Ford, as if you remember, he was from the Model T Ford, one of the first to automate factories. So he had a lot of machines that he needed to lubricate with oil. And he also was making cars that themselves were machines that needed oil lubrication. So he needed oil. And at that point in time, we didn't have OPEC, we didn't have petroleum, very much infrastructure. So his big idea was, hey, can't we, some seeds are oily, aren't they, right? Can't we just grow some? So the answer was, yes, obviously we could, we did. And we had an explosion of farmers growing soybean oil. Soybean is one of the most oily things. And that was all very well and good for industry. Because it answered a huge problem for industry. But then it became a problem for human health. And this is where it really gets twisted and dark, Kelly. And even Dr. Drew, I don't know if, I think you read the book, yeah. So this part of the book is I think every doctor needs to know this story about how the American Heart Association got involved in transforming soy oil from engine lubrication, really basically on the same kind of part of the food chain as petroleum, which is where it should be still, how it got transported to our dining tables. And that has to do with ego and the influence of money. Right. And when I say ego, I'm referring to just an individual, a man, and his name was Ansel Keys. He was part of the American Heart Association, and he wanted credit for discovering the root cause of heart disease. And he thought, probably truly really believed in his heart of hearts, which is a very small black heart, that saturated fat was bad. That was the cause of heart attacks. And particularly, fat period, right? But particularly saturated fat. He felt those things were indulgences. He felt they were sinful. He felt people who were overweight just didn't take their health seriously. And he felt that they almost deserved to have heart attacks because they needed to get their morals right? So this was a man who had very strong opinions. And
so let me just interject or ask you, because somewhere in this story, it fits in the involvement of the sugar lobby.
No, clearly, not this one, not this story. Oh, no, that's a whole other story.
Oh, well, the reason I said it is
because it's another story.
Well, the reason I said it is because the sugar lobby paid off back in the 60s scientists at Harvard. They paid them off to say that it was fat, saturated fat, that caused heart disease, not sugar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so a lot of people mix these things up, but no, this happened way before, and it had nothing to do with Harvard per se. And it was worse than that because Harvard just paid, with that story, the sugar story, they paid a couple of people to write a research paper. But, and that was discovered much more, it was bad, it was horrible, it was a bad thing to do, and it was important that it was discovered. But it was a lot easier to trace than this. And this is so much more sinister and dark because what they did was, it wasn't just Ansel Keys, they actually did never pay him directly anything. What they did was they paid the American Heart Association, the entire organization of cardiologists mostly and scientists devoted to understanding the root cause of heart disease in a time before it had been identified. And Ansel Keys was this force of personality, had this strong opinion, was able to change people's minds, or at least silence and extricate from important committees.
You guys, I got to say, Ansel Keys was no different than Deborah Birx. It is a playbook that has been used over and over again. It was used with the opioid crisis. There were several key players in that one that they do the same thing. They get the professional societies, they get the regulators, they get the board certifying organizations to make it something that's axiomatic. And there's a whole playbook to this. I don't know why people don't see it. It happens every time. And then Birx did it again with COVID. It was just a look at what she did. She went from state to state to state and got all the regulatory agencies on board. Yeah. That's it. We're helpless after that.
Thank you so much for putting that perspective in, because, so many folks in medicine, they don't quite believe it could happen, right? They just do not believe that they could be miseducated.
Look at the opioid crisis. The opioid crisis was the exact same playbook. The pain medicine people went around and said, we understand pain is the fifth vital sign. All the regulatory agencies required us to put pain as the fifth vital sign on every chart in every corner of the land. And it was ridiculous. Pain is whatever the patient says it is. Yeah. Oh, it was awful. So many of my patients died at the hands of that craziness.
That's so tragic. You had also, what they have in common is like the appearance of research, right? But because the American Heart Association got away with it for so much longer, I mean, they still are getting away with it. They have not been called out. And what they did was they set up basically a publishing empire, which churned out, they have now 14 journals, and each journal churns out thousands of articles. And the American Heart Association gets to determine what gets published and what doesn't. And that drives the entire nutrition conversation, not just about fats, but the entire thing.
Well, in every one of their journals, I hate to say it, is nearly 100% subsidized by big pharma, by the people who make, wait for it, statins. The people who make the drug, Lipitor and the drugs that treat high cholesterol. So, they feed those journals, and they will pay only for articles that come to the conclusion that cholesterol is the problem and fat is the problem, and that is what causes heart disease. And if you don't control your cholesterol, and on and on and on. It is as I say, the medical journals at this point, and certainly the American Heart Association's journal is no different. It's fundamentally the marketing arm for big pharma. There's not a lick of actual scientific rigor in there. Scientific integrity is gone AWOL, and has been for a long time. So it is one big, really deep cesspool.
And it is so
Cate,
deep.
I'll let you finish that thought, but I want to finish that thought, but then also want you to launch into, I've got about 5 more minutes with you. Tell our audience what the good oils are, and then what the seed oils do from an inflammatory standpoint. I remember during COVID, you were very concerned about what's left in our body by these seed oils and what they do to us. So finish your thought. Which are the good oils, and what does seed oil do when it's left behind?
So the thought was just, don't forget that, big pharma, probably the largest industry, single industry, certainly big healthcare is. But the other humongous industry, maybe even bigger, depending on how you measure it, is food. And most of what we eat is processed food in this country. So, and there are people who are doing these studies have relationships with Unilever. What do they make? Vegetable oil, canola oil, right? So the money is bigger than anything else on the planet to continue to fund this misinformation campaign that dietitians learn. So it wouldn't help if we had more nutrition classes. We would just be more educated the way dietitians are. And dietitians are miseducated. And here's what they don't know, which answers Dr. Drew's other 2 questions. So what they don't know, what are good fats? And the good fats are all the animal fats. And in terms of the plant world, it's the traditional oils, right? We have the olive oil, we have even peanut oil and sesame seed oil. So the term seed oil is not quite gonna capture what you need to avoid. And so probably I really need to quickly run down what you need to avoid. I call them the hateful 8 because there are 8 of them. We need to memorize them. These are unique. There's nothing like them in the food supply. It has to do with their chemistry and the way they are refined and how that removes most all nutrition. There's nothing like this. So it's corn, canola, cottonseed, soy, sunflower, safflower, rice bran, and grapeseed. And those are toxic. I call those the hateful 8. They are toxic. Now, there's a category of oils that are refined but are not toxic. And I call that's the middle category. They're okay, but not great. And so that's a lot of the new products you're going to see, like the healthier potato chips that have olive oil. That have avocado oil. That's going to be refined avocado oil. So it's not healthy. It's empty calories, but it's not toxic. Refined coconut oil. That's okay, but not great. And the good oils, I have, my favorite 5. I'm just going to list my favorite 5 because there's a lot of really healthy oils out there. But the ones that, I can't do without is butter. And coconut oil, peanut oil, virgin peanut oil, not refined peanut oil, also virgin coconut oil. All your oils should be virgins. So I have 4 virgins in my house right now. And the other 2 are sesame oil and, did I say
olive
peanut oil? Yeah, olive oil. That's it.
Olive oil, yeah. But while you're talking about olive oil, by the way, and I don't know if we have time to get into this, but I have become aware over the past probably 5 years, the big olive oil scam, which is something that people should know about, that a huge number of olive oils sold, certainly in this country, are sold, they say, virgin olive oil, whatever you buy at your grocery store, is most likely not actually olive oil at all. Many of them are these cheaper oils like canola oil, corn oil, whatever, with green coloring added. Some of them are 50-50 at best. Is that something that you feel comfortable talking about, Cate? How people can actually source true olive oil?
Yeah, if you go to the farms themselves, where they say they're located and they're obviously growing olives somewhere, you can that's one way to do it. And the problem was worse in about 10 years ago. And now, at least in America, a lot of the American grown oils are more rigorously tested, and especially anything that says California, it's going to be pretty good. And, if you go to Costco, they've got good quality oils there. So that's like the high level how to navigate it. But I wanted to also address Dr. G's question. Oh, do we have time for the inflammation?
We're really running out of time, but the two things I want to say is I watch mayonnaise and watch salad oil. Boy, that will get you. Salad dressings. There's just bad oils in all of that. You didn't mention beef tallow as one of your favorite oils. Is that technically not an oil, or is that not one of your favorite?
It's a fat, but I just don't have access to a good beef tallow, and I just don't know how to use it myself. But my sister is nuts for it. She cooks all the vegetables.
We use it like crazy. We use the Paleo Valley has a great beef tallow. We use all the time, but answer the question. We'll wrap up with what the seed oils do in the fat and in the adipose tissue and the inflammatory process it leaves behind.
So what they do is they change the chemistry of our body fat, and then they reduce the ability of our cellular mitochondria that generate energy to generate energy without promoting inflammation in whatever tissue. So they promote inflammation in every tissue in our bodies potentially. So this includes the brain. They cause degenerative diseases. They cause inflammatory diseases. They cause mental illness. They cause inflammatory diseases of the lungs. So we get asthma, you get inflammation in your skin. So you get psoriasis or eczema or really bad acne. You get inflammation in your gut. So you get lots of irritable bowel, and you get inflammatory bowel, which can require surgery. You get cancer because chronic inflammation can drive cancer. And you get autoimmune disease. Chronic inflammation confuses the immune system so that the immune system cells can no longer determine self from non-self, and you get autoimmune disease. And I'm just scratching the surface here. I mean, these literally are contributing to the root cause of everything that my patients, I'm a family doc, so I saw every possible kind of illness in all age groups. And it was just totally practice changing. It was mind blowing. It was earth shattering. And my patients were so transformed and so grateful. It was the most rewarding experience I have had as a physician, was just to be able to start telling people, stop eating these oils. And since I was living on Hawaii at the time, almost everybody knew how to cook. They had grown up cooking, and it was very easy for them to make that switch, whereas it's harder in the rest of this country. But they transformed their health. They reversed fatty liver. They reversed diabetes. They got off blood pressure medications. They were happy. They didn't have to come and see me hardly at all anymore.
Kate, I always love talking to you. Throw the book up there, Caleb. I knew Kelly would like this too. I can tell this is...
Yeah, it's great stuff.
We need to, Dark Calories, there it is. And all the references are in the book. So if you want to go deeper into the science, it's all there. And, I just knew Kate would really light a fire under you. So we could talk for hours, sir, right? It's crazy.
Absolutely. Right. And so you got to love what Bobby Kennedy's doing here. I'm sure you're watching from the sidelines saying, I said it first.
Oh, I'm not from the sidelines. I'm helping them. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, exactly. And absolutely. I provided the science that validates what he's saying, and they know it.
That's great.
Kate,
That's great.
Well done. Well done. So here are the multiple things that I do because of Kate. I use a lot of butter, use a lot of tallow. I read labels like crazy, particularly mayonnaise and salad oils and anything like that. And I eat meat. Kate loves this. To the bone. You got to eat all the way to the bone on the meat, because there's a bunch of nutrients in there that I never used to do that, and now I do it. So, Kate, thank you as always. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Tell them where to get the book.
Yeah. Amazon.
No, show the book again.
Oh, show the book, Caleb. Why, Susan? Is there some?
I don't know. Amazon.
There it is. Dark Calories. Go to Amazon. Buy her book. It's and the Deep Nutrition is an encyclopedia also. But Kelly, that was chapter 1 of our fat story. Okay.
Right.
Now I'm going to blow your mind with chapter 2. So
okay.
I feel like I'm like a. I don't know, like I'm
personal.
No, like I'm leading Kelly into this stuff that I know excites her. I know she's into it. So I was so excited about today.
I am into it.
Yeah,
I'll tell you, I really, when I learned about the olive oil scam, and I know Kate's saying it's better than it was, but the reality is just, there was a recent review of a bunch of, I had a bottle of, whatever high quality, I thought, brand from my local grocery store that got absolutely lambasted in the reviews, that it's essentially maybe 50% canola oil, maybe 50% olive oil with green coloring added. I thought I was horrified. So now I only buy olive oil from Costco. They are one of, as she said as well, one of the top brands. It's actually olive oil. It has a serial number on the back, a date when the olives were picked, and you can count on it.
Right.
I haven't done the tallow thing. I certainly eat a fair amount of beef.
It's weird. It'll freak you out at first. It's weird putting a thing of lard, but it cooks beautifully. We use it for everything. But Paleo Valley has a great tallow product.
No, word from our sponsors.
Yeah. Well, hang on. So I got to take a break. But I organized this show in a specific way. So the seed oils and all the choices we've made, as in terms of what we were mandated to follow in terms of what a healthy diet was, turns out we ended up deficient in a very significant way with one particular fatty acid that if you don't replace, you can get in some very serious trouble. And a veterinarian picked this out. She does. I think we probably have that ad coming up, but you'll see it on the ad. She's a Navy veterinarian, and she was caring for the Navy's dolphin fleet, and she noticed something. I'm going to have her tell the story. We'll take a little break first, and then Stephanie Venn-Watson will be here to tell you that whole story. Okay. I'm excited to bring you a new product, a new supplement, Fatty. I take it. I make Susan take it. My whole family takes it. This comes out of, believe it or not, dolphin research. The Navy maintains a fleet of dolphins, and a brilliant veterinarian recognized that these dolphins sometimes developed a syndrome identical to our Alzheimer's disease. Those dolphins were deficient in a particular fatty acid. She replaced the fatty acid, and they didn't get the Alzheimer's. Humans have the same issue, and we are more deficient in this particular fatty acid than ever before. And a simple replacement of this fatty acid called C15 will help us prevent these syndromes. It's published in a recent journal called Metabolites. It's a new nutritional C15, pentadecanoic acid it's called. The deficiency that we are developing for C15 creates something called the cellular fragility syndrome. This is the first nutritional deficiency syndrome to be discovered in 75 years and may be affecting us in many ways, and as many as 1 in 3 of us. This is an important breakthrough. Take advantage of it. Go to fatty15.com/Dr. Drew to receive 15% off a 90-day starter kit subscription, or use code Dr. Drew at checkout for that 15% off, or just go to our website, drdrew.com/fatty15. Weight loss and gum loss, the Wellness Company's got you covered with new products. Drop. It's for aggressive appetite control. It comes in easy-to-use liquid drops. No prescription, no painful shot. It is an oral peptide called retatrutide. It actually mimics the way the body naturally loses weight, and it is designed to support faster, more focused weight loss when combined with healthy eating and exercise. And Smile is a breakthrough fluoride-free peptide toothpaste. It gently whitens and reverses gum loss, actually rebuilding tissue at its source with a proprietary blend of peptides, remineralizers, and soothing botanicals. Go to drdrew.com/TWC for more information on Drop and Smile, and check out another new and innovative solution for hair loss called Roots while you're there. That's drdrew.com/TWC for 10% off. What's so special about Paleo Valley's grass-fed and finished bone broth and superfood bars? Well, everything. All are delicious, high in nutrients, low in calories, and contain nothing artificial. co-founder Autumn Smith on what goes into every superfood bar.
So we have bone broth protein powder, and then we've added other superfoods, cashew butter, we have spirulina in there, acerola, broccoli powder, kale, blueberries. And so it really is kind of just an infusion of superfoods with every bite.
And then there's the extraordinary bone broth protein made with an ancestral approach that boosts our collagen intake.
Collagen is something that's gone by the wayside in our modern diet because we don't eat nose to tail anymore, but it was something we ate a lot of, and it has so many benefits. So if you have sagging skin, joint pain, gut issues, your decreased bone mineral density, slow to heal your wounds, slow recovery, these are all things that collagen can dramatically improve. If we're not giving our body the building blocks to produce it, we just age more rapidly. It also improves sleep, improves blood sugar control. So it's essentially like the Swiss Army knife of healthy aging.
Like I said, Paleo Valley's bone broth is something special. Make Paleo Valley part of your longevity regimen. Go to drdrew.com/Paleo Valley for 20% off when you subscribe and 15% off your first order. That is drdrew.com/Paleo Valley.
And that suggests trouble in a relationship.
Sean, who are you? Like Dr. Drew all of a sudden?
And this fat discussion today reminds me of how proud I am of the people that we work with. And Paleo Valley, they're grass-fed beef tallow, and they have organic olive oil as well. It's the real deal. So they can get their stuff at drdrew.com/Paleo Valley for 15% off your first order. There it is up there again. So, but...
It's real olive oil, everybody.
Yep, the
it's
real
not
stuff.
The fake stuff.
But the focus today is fats. And to me, the how can I say this? The most extraordinary, one of the most extraordinary breakthroughs on the fat front is what Dr. Stephanie Venn-Watson came upon. So Kelly, let's get Kelly back in here. Kelly, I want to introduce you to Dr. Stephanie Venn-Watson. She is a veterinarian. She and her husband is an orthopedic surgeon, work with the Navy, and she has a story. And I want her to tell you her story and what she's uncovered and what the implications are for it. And she is much like Cate. Stephanie is a great scientist and a careful researcher. Stephanie, welcome back.
It was wonderful to be here. Great to see you. And hi, Dr. Kelly.
Hi, nice to meet you too. I have to say, I wish for many, many years, and it isn't going to happen, that they would discover that sugar was actually great for you, that you really needed to eat gobs and gobs of sugar. But alas, that is not going to happen. So my second best thing is to find out that fat. So, that we should be eating more fat as long as it's the good fat. So yeah, educate me, fill me in now about this dolphin discovery.
The story of this fat, this is the cherry on top of the fat story. So Stephanie, tell us your history with this phenomenon.
Absolutely. Kelly, I'm here to check off that box for you. So as Dr. Drew shared, I'm a veterinary epidemiologist, and I was working with the Navy. I was brought on to help continually improve the health and welfare of the Navy's dolphins. So this whole story started by taking care of the Navy's dolphins, which was, so wonderful for the Navy to dedicate resources to do so. And, the Navy has cared for this population of about 100 bottlenose dolphins for over 60 years. They live in the open ocean, go out in the ocean every day. Every day they choose to come back. And Kelly, what we found was that as the decades passed, was that Navy dolphins live a lot longer than dolphins in the wild. So dolphins in the wild live to about 20. Dolphins at the Navy are routinely living into their 40s and 50s, with 2 dolphins this year turning 60 years old.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. So yay. Yay for you. We got a Susan yay back there. And so so that gave us this unprecedented opportunity, right, to be able to understand aging in a clean, long-lived, large-brained mammalian population. And what we saw was that about 1 in 3 bottlenose dolphins were developing these aging-associated diseases like high cholesterol, chronic inflammation. There you go. It's all up there. Metabolic syndrome, fatty liver disease, right? This non-alcoholic fatty liver disease that didn't even exist before 1980 in people shows up both in dolphins and humans at the same time. So We use this advanced technology called metabolomics to be able to look at thousands of small molecules present in the dolphin's blood, as well as their all fish diet, to see which small molecules would predict the healthiest aging dolphins. We thought for sure it was going to be omega-3s because all they eat are fish. And instead, Kelly, you'll be really glad to hear this. The top predictor of healthy aging dolphins was C15, a saturated fatty acid present in butter. So fast forward 10 years, and there's now over 100 peer-reviewed studies. C15 has emerged as the first essential fatty acid to be found in over 90 years. And now there's a deficiency syndrome present in as many 1 in 3 people we're ready to fix.
Wow.
And talk about cellular fragility and ferroptosis and what we knew. They even, that book that they flashed up there, Stephanie's book is I mean, it's encyclopedic. It's readable. Unlike most encyclopedic science documents, but it is a very readable story. It's almost like it's a mystery novel, like you're reading through, how she came upon these things and what they came upon, but it's real science. But let me just ask you this real fast, because I would have said the same thing, dolphin eat fish. So I'm assuming it was going to be, omega-3s that are fine. What is it that the dolphins eat? They're obviously not eating butter. So what are they? What are they eating that's giving them this essential fatty acid?
Yeah, it's ice cream. No, just kidding. So it's a great question. So what we learned from dolphins is that there are specific types of fish that they were eating that had higher C15. So up until the late 1990s, most of the dolphins were eating a type of fish called eulachon. And eulachon are these super fatty fish. They're so fatty that you could dry them, stick a wick in them, and light them. And they were called candlefish. And that fishery died out. And so when that fishery died out, the Navy brought in multiple new types of fish. It ends up that 2 of them had no C15 in it, and the other 3 had lower C15. So all of a sudden, we had a population in which, based upon the fish that the dolphins were being fed, some were getting C15 diet and others were not.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So what we've learned then is, as we saw, again, this took decades, of observations and data and from collected from this population. What we saw then was that this 1 in 3 were developing aging-associated conditions. What we now know is that C15 plays a crucial role in strengthening our cell membranes. So Dr. Cate was just upright talking about how polyunsaturated fatty acids, the seed oils, have these double bonds, which make them susceptible to oxidation. C15 is the opposite. It has no double bonds, so its role is to actually be resistant to this oxidation, to stabilize our cell membranes against breakdown. And if we don't have enough C15 in our cell membranes, which comes directly from our diet, then our cells become fragile, they break down, and it leads to an entirely new form of cell death called ferroptosis that was discovered by Columbia University researchers back in 2012. We were finding this in the dolphins. It was manifesting itself as accelerated aging, increased and accelerated onset and severity of liver disease, metabolic syndrome, type 2 diabetes, and heart disease. What we didn't know was there was a name for it that had popped up in 2012.
Well, I have so many questions. So start with what's
Kate, the because there's follow on to this stuff too that it sort of broadens out to other mechanisms and longevity sort of influences. But go ahead, ask your questions.
Yeah. So what are the lots of questions? But what are the sources other than this one fish in which you find in nature this particular fatty acid? You said butter.
Yeah. So
what else?
For us, by far, our primary source of C15 is from dairy fat, whole dairy fat. So as we took dairy fat out of our diet, right, in 1977, Congress released guidelines, nutritional guidelines for all Americans in 1977, exactly what Cate was just covering in the first section, where they said, listen, too many older men are having heart attacks, which they were, and the way that we're going to solve it is by decreasing our intake of all saturated fats, and the best way to do that is to decrease our intake of whole dairy fat, whole milk, whole fat milk, and butter. And so what we did was we actually induced C15 deficiencies, and we now have these broken generations born into a world without enough C15.
Is it found in colostrum?
Oh, it's a great question. Yeah, it is found in colostrum, and this includes in moms. So, as a veterinarian, right?
So, yeah.
And so there's this whole great set of studies. Your timing is perfectly with this that have come out showing that the more C15 that mom eats, specifically even from cheese, the more C15 she has, the more C15 is in her milk and her colostrum, the more C15 baby gets. And the more C15 baby gets, the better their body growth, the better their cognitive development. And so it's a really exciting time with regard to a lot of calls to action to say infant formulas don't have C15 in them. How do we get it right back into as young as even in the womb?
And then the other question, or another question I had was, you were just talking about, the stability, not having these double bonds and therefore being resistant to oxidation. One of the reasons we ended up with using all of these, unhealthy fats, canola oil and trans fats and all that, was because they were shelf stable. And it allows you to, make a Twinkie that has a shelf life of 30 years, but if this particular fat that you're talking about, this C15, does not have those, is also it would make it shelf stable. Is there any way that it could, it would be the ultimate shelf stable fats and therefore could replace some of these wildly unhealthy fats like trans fats in our foods, no?
Yeah, I think we need to package that and send it off to the industry, what you just said. Absolutely. This is the whole job of this molecule is to be a stabilizing fat, is to allow resilience, whether you're a Twinkie or whether you're a cell inside of our bodies, our brains, hearts, livers, lungs. Yeah, absolutely.
Now there's clinical application and clinical observations now on top of all these nutritional issues, cellular fragility, these mechanisms, the obvious deficiencies, the effects on the dolphin. They've been able to reverse non-alcoholic fatty liver disease with this product. There have been some significant effects of neurodegenerative disorders. Why don't you get into that, Stephanie?
Yeah, absolutely. So what's been really exciting is that that the world now has access to C15, and they've been doing studies with it. And, what's really important in science is not a single paper that makes a statement and therefore it shall be, right? It's about independent groups throughout the world doing the same work and repeating the findings, right? Before we all jump on a boat and say, so when we put, the stake in the ground, a really bold stake in the ground in 2020, saying that C15 met the criteria of an essential fatty acid, the first to be discovered, right, in over 90 years. And there are only two other essential fatty acids, which one's an omega-3 and one is an omega-6. So what's been important is that since then, there have been 4 teams in 3 countries that have challenged this, does C15 really meet the criteria of an essential fatty acid? And they've all come back with yes. And then, Dr. Drew, to your point, there are now multiple clinical trials in which teams have used C15 supplementation in younger people who have fatty liver disease, as well as middle-aged people, women. They have also looked at women who are susceptible to anxiety, and the latest had to do with people with at risk of cardiovascular disease. And what all of these have shown is that C15 has these broad benefits, which we've known, but to be able to see it in clinical trials is great of decreased LDL cholesterol. So the opposite here, a saturated fat is lowering LDL cholesterol, the opposite of what we've been taught, helping with the gut microbiome, helping with red blood cell health, with the just broad benefits, and even lowering anxiety. So the big question here. Yeah, go ahead.
Does it seem to have the same benefits, Stephanie, when taken in a supplement form versus when it's eaten through a
great question,
naturally containing food? Do you get the same benefit if you take it as a capsule?
That's a great question. So there's actually a paper that was recently published. I was just writing up a blog about it right before this, where it was a study in which it was to look at the potential value of C15, adding C15 into infant formula, and they were looking at piglets, because piglets are a lot like human babies. And what they showed is they actually compared if it was a food-based C15 versus a pure C15, and what they showed was that pure C15 had higher efficacy in repairing mitochondria, repairing the gut lining, and helping with healthy body growth compared to C15 that was embedded in foods. And a big part of that is because, if you look at butter or milk fat, that only 1% of milk fat is C15. Over 40% does have pro-inflammatory fatty acids. So the hypothesis is that it's just that C15 is just like this little C15 15 carbon thing that just can't compete and make its way through when it has a bunch of other bully fats. So giving it alone. And so the Navy funded us. They challenged us to develop a pure C15 ingredient so that it could do exactly what you're talking about, which is like, let's get to the heart of the efficacy of this molecule. Right.
And commonly what we find with things is that you simply can't eat enough of the foods to get the required. It's the same thing with the vitamin D. You simply cannot eat enough vitamin D in your diet. So, supplementing it is absolutely the thing that 99% of Americans need to be doing, is supplementing it. So I'm happy to hear that that's the same thing with this, this new essential fatty acid. I'm sure that rocked people's worlds.
Right.
Cool.
And
there it is. That's what it is.
Let alone thanks to dolphins, right? So it's sometimes you just need a different perspective to be able to look at health and to understand, because like you talked about in the earlier section that the blinders go up and you just accept things as is, despite the fact of numerous studies. Like there are dozens and dozens of studies that have shown people with higher C15 are less likely to get type 2 diabetes, heart disease, cardiovascular disease. And just like you were saying, Kelly, that, the randomized clinical trials are good, but you also need to understand the mechanism of action. You need to show large-scale, long-term epidemiological studies all supporting it. It's the totality of the studies that have enabled C15 to really rise to the top.
Is there any evidence so far, Stephanie, that you can reverse some of the neurodegenerative diseases, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, those sorts of things, by supplementing C15 in patients who already have symptomatology?
There haven't been any clinical trials specific to dementia, but there have been really exciting studies that have come out with regard to. We just published a paper in April, where we showed, and Dr. Drew, you've talked about this, that we've known now that cetaceans, which include whales and porpoises and dolphins, as they get older, they develop Alzheimer's, changes in the brain that are identical to humans. So only cetaceans and primates develop this specific type of Alzheimer's. And what we found when we basically threw C15 against a bunch of different targets, therapeutic targets for Alzheimer's, the same ones that the drug companies do, we did with this saturated fat and butter, right? And what we showed was that C15 had two really important activities. One is called a MAO-B inhibitor, and the other is an FAAH inhibitor. The bottom line is these activities help support healthy dopamine levels and healthy endocannabinoid levels. This hits at the heart of drive, as well as lowering inflammation, right? All of these hit at the heart of what drives the onset of cognitive decline as well as dementias.
Wow.
So Kelly, I feel like you're having the same experience. You're having the same experience I had when I first met Stephanie, because she is such an excellent scientist and a clear thinker, and the evidence that she has accumulated is just it's clear. It's so clear what's going on here. So I went, just following her and listening to her got me in the door. And once I started really looking around, I became an enthusiast for this. And she just continues to blow me away with more and more and more evidence. So I appreciate it. Stephanie, have we left anything out? Did we miss anything today? I think you've got Kelly gaffed on board, which is good.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Well, I'm a big believer. I take my, eat my body weight in supplements on a day. I truly do. I've become an absolute.
You left this one out. You got to get this one in there.
Exactly.
Everyone in this household's on it.
one more I got to add. I said if they ever do any studies that determine that the gelatin that the capsules are made of is carcinogenic, I'm totally screwed because I eat a mountain of capsules. But they all have good science behind them, and so I am very much. I don't just jump on a bandwagon. Drew's been talking about fatty 15 for and this C15 for a while now. I'm thrilled to actually
it's Stephanie. It's her fault. It's Stephanie's fault. It sounds like much the way Cate caught my attention. I know good scientists and I know good clinicians when I see them. I'm like, oh, this is clear thinking. Yep. This is good science. Tell me more.
Agree. I agree. And it really makes sense. And the best science, frankly, is discovered the way that you discovered this. You have a group of animals that you were able to observe and watch and go, wow, something is unusual about this group. What is it that they are doing? It's how we've made some of the greatest discoveries in medicine throughout the ages. And so I like the way it was done. You didn't go to find something. You started to explore and really investigate something that was occurring in front of your eyes. You didn't set out to look for something. And I think that's awesome. That's right. So yeah. I will. I'll be adding that to my mountain of supplements.
Well, that's great. Well, we have about
and Ron's too.
Yes, there you go.
We have 70% of our customers report feeling benefits within 16 weeks. Kelly, and that includes deeper sleep, calmer mood, less joint pain. So it has a lot of these benefits, a lot of near-term benefits,
less
but really
joint pain over here.
Oh, there you go. See, there you go, Stephen. Less joint pain. So
I swear, when I was in Europe walking around, I was like so happy. My knee didn't hurt. And I said, I've been taking this fatty 15. I bet that's it. So.
I'm glad that people feel better, but I'll tell you what, though, I am looking for expanding wellness and longevity. And that's what I was. So I don't want to feel anything. I want 10 years from now not to have something else happen to me. And this is the kind of things that will impact measurably on our longevity and our wellness.
Terrific.
And I'm an enthusiast. Yeah,
I'll take less joint pain.
I'll take.
Yeah, I will too.
Stephanie,
I will too.
I think we ran the cycle, and I think we got Kelly on board, which is going to be sort of my measuring stick for how well we were doing here.
Nice.
And I think you got her. So where do you want people to go to find you and the book, and give them sort of some marching orders?
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to fatty15.com to go check out the supplement. Of course, Dr. Drew going through, you have it up here, drdrew.com, fatty. And then we also have, you can go to the longevity nutrient is available wherever books are sold, including Amazon. And if you want to really nerd out and read all of the peer-reviewed science, we said, there are over 100 peer-reviewed studies, and literally every week, there are new studies coming out around the world about C15, which is a super exciting time. You can go to discoverc15.com, and that's where we put all the science, which can also help you fall asleep at night, reading all those heavy studies.
Great to see you. We'll see you soon.
Awesome.
Thanks for joining us.
Seeing you both. Kelly, it's wonderful meeting you.
Cheers. So Kelly, today was so fun for me because it landed exactly where I hoped it would. So I wanted to take you through a little journey here, and you're
great stuff.
Kelly's such a great thinker. She's a great scientist, she's a great clinician. I knew you would just glom onto this stuff because these are two women scientists. One's also a physician, a peer, and their thinking is so clear, and they're either their reading of the science or the actually execution of the science is pushing these things forward. And as you know, and I'll let you go off on this one more time, things have been so adulterated for so long. Thank God for women like this doing this hard work.
No, and as I said, everything that I know about nutrition, I did not learn in medical school. I've gone on my own journey because I'm fascinated by it. And I think that I have, largely uncovered what is on the right path, just like you have. But I'm always absolutely thrilled when I find out about something else that is truly backed by real science, not, driven by the profits of some pharmaceutical company or saying, wow, this is a great thing and so easy to do as well. I'm looking for things where you don't have to scrap your entire diet. I wish I could tell you that I was going to go some people have had unbelievably great results metabolically and and physiologically with, for example, going on a carnivore diet. I am not going to do that. That is not the Kelly. I am not going to give up.
I did it.
Yeah,
I did it for 3 years, and it was not that hard. But you get palate fatigue. You start to. It's almost impossible to not get palate fatigue.
And so, I think that there are lots of reasons that you should still eat broccoli and cauliflower and leafy greens and those things. So I'm not willing to give them up. But I've made a lot of huge changes. I don't eat fruit, for example, just because of the sugar content. I eat an extraordinarily low sugar diet because of the impact on inflammation and cancer and those sorts of things. But I think now being able to add something as simple as C15 and be able to improve even more your inflammatory markers and those sorts of things. It's great stuff. Great stuff. Thank you for including me in the conversation.
Well, I'm so glad you could join us. Good to see you. People love having you on the show. Let me look at what they're saying real quick here. Book says total carnivore is boring. Yeah, it is, but it isn't. I mean, at first it's kind of satisfying because you get bacon and you get, good quality meats and things. But it just over time.
I got fat.
Well, I got fat too because
bacon is not good for you on a regular basis.
Yeah,
bacon.
I think there's good
though.
Science behind eating leafy greens and vegetables.
For sure, cruciferous vegetables, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I eat zero starches. I don't eat potatoes, rice, pasta, bread, nothing. I've eliminated those because for me that works. But, so I eat a very vegetable forward diet with a lot of meat and seafood on top of it. And that works. So finding something that works for you, as I said, has to, be part of the picture. But what we have learned recently about seed oils, and again, I was relatively new to that. It's only been in the past few years that I have understood just how bad we were misled by things like canola oil and corn oil and all that.
For sure. And you heard the word oxidation repeatedly today through this fat story. And I really am a big advocate for, I believe oxidation and oxidative species is the enemy of health. It's certainly the enemy of trying to stay young. It's what causes aging, if not accelerates it.
Correct.
And NAD is our main molecule that fights that back, and that declines with age. We need more research on that. I mean, I'm a big advocate of NR in addition to fatty, nicotinamide riboside. I want to raise NAD, but fatty, I feel like it's going at oxidation yet another way, which is like membrane stability, not letting those membranes oxidize. There's so many ways in which the simple molecule of oxygen, when it becomes a free radical, harms us as we age. And when we don't have enough to fight that back because of aging again, we've got to figure out ways to fight it. And seed oils accelerate it. The healthy fats fight against it. Fatty 15 fights against it. And that is the battle of aging. Susan, anything else on your front? I know you were excited to have Kelly back on the show.
I know. I love Kelly. I also think that this Fatty 15 product is good in combination with the V-Shred product that we're promoting because you also get the NR and the Cinosync and all that stuff together, and it's actually a great package. That's my supplement,
policy is those. And I'm like you. I take nicotinamide. I take... I take a bunch of stuff. I take krill oils. I do. What else are you into?
They have krill oil.
Oh my gosh!
Supplements? By the way, I tried the drop too, from TWC. Kelly and I are on the board, the medical board at TWC, and it really does work at very low dose. And the only experience I had is it messed with my sleep a little bit.
A lot of people have had really great results with drop, and it's a far, far safer alternative to the injectable GLP-1 medications. It can be titrated to way lower doses. You take it daily, and therefore you don't have that big, spike that you get when you do a weekly injection and on and on. I'm a huge fan of things like berberine, turmeric, curcumin. I take olive leaf, oregano oil, broccoli sprouts, and I take those again in a capsule form. They are the highest, broccoli sprouts have the highest level of sulforaphane of any food. And sulforaphane is a profound anti-cancer substance, has great properties.
Doesn't TWC have a product?
They do. TWC has, that's where I get my broccoli sprouts. Quercetin, zinc, vitamin D. I keep my vitamin D levels between 80 and 100. I think we were really led astray. You do. We were led astray that most labs report out 20 to 50 as a normal range. That's nanograms per milliliter of vitamin D. That is far too low. We knew early, for example, in the COVID pandemic, that people who had vitamin D levels of 65 or above had almost zero chance of contracting COVID at all. Vitamin D is a wonder drug. There's no question that the vast majority of Blacks are vitamin D deficient. About 80% of black-skinned people are. 50% of Latinos are vitamin D deficient, and almost 35% of Caucasians are. So supplementing vitamin D is one of the simplest things you can do to improve your health.
Kelly, where do you want people to go to find you?
Primarily on X. I'm at Dr. Dr. at Dr. Kelly Victory. On Twitter, I'm pretty active there, and then also at the Wellness Company. You and I are spending more and more time doing. I'm on either Newsmax or Real America's Voice on a very, very regular basis, doing interviews related to all things health. I also am the disaster specialist for the Weather Channel now. So I do regular
spots on
Congratulations. If anyone happens to be up at 3 a.m. watching the Weather Channel, you'll find me there.
Oh my God.
So my mother would be so proud. So at the Wellness Company, and the Wellness Company, by the way, I think we are doing remarkable work there. It started as, medical kits where people could go and get access to some of the contraband, prescription medications like ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. But the reality is,
got the big.
Yep. Yeah, I designed that field emergency kit. That was my baby. But we are doing all kinds of things. People really should go and look at the vast array of longevity, health, and wellness supplements, and really people can take control of their own health there. I think I'm very, very pleased with what the company's doing.
Hey, let's talk about something very quickly before we sign out. Nick Hulscher, who I'm an enormous fan of, he's sort of the main scientist, researcher, publisher at the McCullough Institute, and he had put an article out that I'm not prepared to get behind yet. They asked me to get behind it on a show, and I'm like, it's not there yet. It's just, it's fascinating. I stand behind his observations, but he showed that some of the platinum-based chemotherapies might create microenvironments and contribute to metastasis activation. And it's a fascinating idea. It does not fit with my clinical experience, and I'd like to see more, please, before we go, hey, we have something. I just worry about that.
Yeah, I saw the article as well. Again, it's the first I'd heard of that. I am not a fan of standard chemotherapy. I think it is draconian. We have, we kill people slowly, as we are supposedly curing their cancer.
That point, Kelly, to that point, we're moving away from those sorts of traditional kinds of chemos into these immunotherapies and radio-labeled, proteins and isotopes things. And so this whole thing may be mute in 3 to 5 years anyway. So I don't know.
Exactly.
I worry about us getting too loud with that one.
I agree, and I can't speak authoritatively on that particular article that he wrote, where he was saying that actually chemotherapy actually causes cancer by reactivating dormant cells. Out of my area of expertise, but as I said, in general, I'm not a fan of cytotoxic chemotherapy. I think things like ivermectin, vitamin D, and some of the repurposed drugs, fenbendazole and mebendazole, are really going to end up ultimately being the answer. So to cancer.
There's also this push to get natural killer cell function enhanced.
Correct.
So our own
Yep.
scavenging system can go in there
Yep.
and clean things out. That is a active area that I'm interested
Yes.
in. I don't know what
Yep.
to think of what's available yet, but I think that's another area. All right. Well, listen,
Correct.
as always, wonderful to have you. I'll see you at our board
Thank you.
meeting next. And
I'll
we'll
see you soon.
everyone here will find you on X. Thank you so much. And
Thanks. Bye.
Caleb, coming up, we have, as always, incredible guests that Emily Barsh has lined up for us. Let's see. Chloe Carmichael this is going to fascinate you. She is a psychologist who's been ringing the bell on the capture of psychology. We're going to get into topics like that coming up on the 29th. Sage Steele will be in here on the 31st. Kennedy, I just did, she is like right now on the Will Kane show, she and I are on that. Dr. Elizabeth Potter and many, many more great guests. I received a lovely email from Jenny McCarthy, who had a lovely time here. And Susan, thanked you for mentioning her products, which
Used them today.
I know. I was telling
Her
her
eyeshadow color is so good.
you do not sign off on beauty products lightly. They have to be.
I have a Sephora in my bathroom.
Thank you. I used to give me grief when I would say that, but you do indeed. All right. So our next show is on Tuesday at 2:00. And we're going to talk, amongst other things, in addition to the capture of psychology, we're going to talk about the so-called Gen Z blank stare. Also on Monday, I'll be on the...
What?
You're going to want to hear about this. It's something to do with what we were looking at dinner the other night. We were looking at Gen Zers running around.
Yeah.
I think some of it was that. And Dave Rubin Show on Monday. Find me there, and I'll see you on Tuesday here at 2:00 Pacific time. Ask Dr. Drew is produced by Caleb Nation and Susan Pinsky. As a reminder, the discussions here are not a substitute for medical care, diagnosis, or treatment. This show is intended for educational and informational purposes only. I am a licensed physician, but I am not a replacement for your personal doctor, and I am not practicing medicine here. Always remember that our understanding of medicine and science is constantly evolving. Though my opinion is based on the information that is available to me today, some of the contents of this show could be outdated in the future. Be sure to check with trusted resources in case any of the information has been updated since this was published. If you or someone you know is in immediate danger, don't call me, call 911. If you're feeling hopeless or suicidal, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-8255. You can find more of my recommended organizations and helpful resources at drdrew.com/help.